Hello students, in our previous classes I have discussed with you about the diversified structure of the plant parts, and my today's topic is pollination. So first of all you have to know what is pollination. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower or between flowers of the same species is called pollination. Pollination are of two types. One is self-pollination and another is cross-pollination. So what is self-pollination? Self-pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or of a flower borne on the same plant is called self-pollination. So in self-pollination, the pollination occur between the flowers of same plant or between the anther and stigma of a same flower. For example, pollination of pea flower, where you can find the self-pollination. Okay students, and another type is cross-pollination. Cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of a flower of one plant to the stigma of a flower of another plant of the same species is called cross-pollination. So in cross-pollination, the pollination occurs between the two different plants of same species. Now, we can say that the pollination is the transfer of pollen grains of anther to the stigma of a flower. So, how this transfer occurs? This transfer occurs through some agents, which are called agents of pollination. They can be wind, they can be water, or animals such as birds, bats, and insects. So, air or wind, water, and some animals are the pollinating agents by which pollination occurs. So, first of all, you have to know about the pollination by wind. So, there are some characteristic features of the flowers which are wind pollinated. What are they? Wind pollinated flowers are not showy or colorful. They have very lightweight pollen grains which can be easily carried by the wind. These flowers are neither scented nor do they secrete nectar. The pollen grains are produced in large quantities. The stigma of the receiving flowers are sticky or feathery to catch the pollen grains. For example, maize is pollinated by wind. Now, the second pollinating agent is water. So, how it occurs? Aquatic plants use water as a means of pollination. These plants have small, non-showy flowers and lightweight pollen grains, which can easily float on water. The pollen grains are also covered with a protective waxy layer which prevents them from getting damaged by water. For example, Vallisneria is pollinated by water. And now, there is a question that why do wind and air pollinated plants produce a lot of pollen? If you look at the characteristic feature, you will observe that lots of pollens are produced in those type of plants which are air or water pollinated. The reason is pollen from the wind and water pollinated plants may not always land on the receiving flowers and can fall on other flowers as well. Therefore, to increase the chances of pollination, these plants produce a greater number of pollen grains. Now, the third type is pollination by animals. Besides the wind and water, some pollination can occur by the animals. So, what are the animals? Birds, insects such as bees and butterflies, bats, and other animals acts as agents of pollination. Plants that are pollinated by animals have large, showy, and brightly colored flowers. They may be sweetly scented or produce sugary nectar to attract the animals. These flowers can produce sticky or spiny pollen grains that stick to the body of insects and are carried by them. For example, pollination in sunflower or hibiscus, they can be occurred by the insects or any other animals. So those are the three types of pollination according to their pollinating agent. And what is the importance of pollination? Pollination leads to the fertilization. When during the pollination, the pollen grains from the anther of a flower fall to the stigma of another flower or the same flower, and after that pollen grains move to the style and goes to the ovary and they fertilize the ovum, and that process is called fertilization. And after fertilization, fruits and seeds are formed from the flower. So except pollination, no fruits and no seed can be formed. So for this reason, pollination is a very, very important process for plants, and pollination can be occurred by the water, wind, or any other animals. So these pollinating agents are also very important for the plants. Now, in today's environment, plants faces some problems during pollination. So what are they? Excess use of insecticides reduce beneficial insect like honeybee. We use insecticide in large scale in agricultural field that reduces the pollinating agents like butterflies, honeybees, and other insects, which are very harmful during the course of pollination. Because there is no agent, then pollination can't occur. The next problem is the bloom period is changing due to the fluctuation of temperature. And the third and very important point is deforestation of trees like shimul destroy the shelters of the pollinating vectors like bats. Bats are resides at the shimul plant, and if plant or tree is not there, then their habitat will be destroyed, and the pollinating agents they don't have any shelter and they also died. For this reason, pollination will be hampered. So those are the reasons for which pollination of plants will be hampered today. So student, this is all about the pollination. You just follow my class and read your textbook and try to answer the questions like fill in the blanks or column matching that is present in your textbook. Okay students, thank you.